Hey guys, what's up? So today we're going to be talking about the Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue number 1 that came out this week. It was the only Spider-Man related thing aside from the Carnage comic that came out, so I just thought, hey, let's talk about it. So this is issue number 1. I've been fairly interested in it since they announced it. Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man, like what could that possibly, mean? I went into it thinking that it was just going to be him being an asshole or something like that, just how he is in his current run, except, he would be going off just massacring people or whatnot. But no, it's a pretty interesting story. I want to say this is probably the best Spider-Man comic I've read that is a modern, Spider-Man comic. Because it actually feels like one of the older school comics where Peter Parker, or, just in general, the character that we're following throughout this entire comic is just narrating to himself. So he has like his own thought bubbles, and he has of course his dialogue speeches, but in his thought bubbles you get to understand the character more. He actually talks about what he's thinking in the moment, so you're not left there just filling in the empty space yourself, like you typically tend to do with most of the modern comics that are out here, poorly written. No, but this one's actually like really good. Like, this is a comic for someone that's really into Spider-Man. If this is like your first comic that you're picking up and you've only probably have watched the Spider-Man movies or maybe a few of the TV shows, this is gonna be the most what the hell kind of comic to you. Like, you're not gonna know a single thing that's happening because it's very different. A lot of the differences are basically like setting changes, and in that it also brings up questions that I'm sure they're gonna cover in the future. But I mean, like, setting changes, like he's not even in New York, he's in Pasadena, California. That's where his ESU school is. He does bring up a lot about how he misses things from New York, and I can't tell, well, from the very beginning of this story, I can't tell if it's just a dream, like a very lucid, vivid dream that he's having, or if this is actual real-life events that he's going through. And you might be thinking, like, just exactly how I thought, like, oh, this entire thing could just be a dream. It's one of those situations. Well, it's done in a way where, yeah, you can kind of go into it just thinking, oh, this is just a dream scenario, it doesn't really matter. But then it also introduces elements like where you really can't tell whether it is a dream or not, but it's done well. It's just what I'm trying to say. It's done well, it's not some shitty, oh, this is a dream kind of BS, There is a part in it where he's doing this science experiment with his lab partner, like Peter Parker typically does, and they do bring up the fact how he's basically sleep deprived. So this is what leads me to believe that all these like crazy dream sequences where he just, like in this one part, he's spacing out, he's playing chess with this one dude on along the beach, and all of a sudden he touches this like mysterious rock that he found, and he instantly just transports into this psychedelic world that he keeps seeing like these spirals in, right? So this is sort of the theme with this particular issue. There's just a constant stream of spirals that he's encountering when he's in these like dream sequences where, like I said, you still don't know whether it's the real life or if it's just happening in the dream or both. You just don't know. But no, you get your basic, morally good, rightful Peter Parker in this, of course. At first you do think that he's rich. It comes off as like, because he has this like personal driver that just drives him around once in the comic. But it leads me to believe that he's rich, right? Because he just knows the driver. It gave me like Harry Osborn vibes, like that level of richness. Because after playing chess with his homie, there's a sequence where he fights a bear, like after he plays chess with his homies and he ends up going home. In between that, he ends up fighting a bear because he's protecting like these Gen Zers in their horrible hiking attire. They're getting attacked by bears basically, and he's roasting the shit out of the Gen Zers while also fighting the bear. But he does make a point in this fighting sequence that because of how tired he is, he's not at his usual top game, which is, it tends to be a Spider-Man trait where he's just typically not in his top game because he's like always somehow very tired, or he ends up like getting too injured to the point where he basically has like one arm tied behind his back as he's fighting. And this is one of those situations, but they bring up the fact that he's tired, of course, which is another point that leads me to believe that this is all the crazy dreams that he's getting is, you know, just because he's tired. He's just forcing himself awake. And then there's another sequence where after he saves the kids from the bear, he swings onto his Malibu mansion. And this is also where it leads you to believe, oh, he's just some rich kid Spider-Man from California. No, they do bring up a fact how his friend Randy and Janice are the ones that are like letting him stay at that house. So this, you know, gives you more insight on the story itself, whether he's just spending time in California or if this is his rightful place within the story. You just don't know that. But he sits down and starts viewing the rock that he found, and he enters another one of his nightmarish kind of dreams. And here he's just walking around super old man through this maze when out of nowhere this humanoid looking creature pulls out a giant Glock on him. Like it's comically huge basically. And this humanoid creature, he looks like he's just wearing a hoodie. He has a crow face, like it's an actual crow head, and he's wearing a hoodie, just to give you something to imagine. And he just outright shoots Peter, tells him something about becoming is an act of being. It's some weird themey thing they're trying to pull on here. I'm sure they're gonna elaborate more, of course, with the next issues. And just as he gets shot by this crow being in his dream, he wakes up, only to have the friends that I'm assuming own this mansion start talking to Peter. And they're talking about how, oh yeah, he's being very lazy, slacking, he doesn't pick up his messes. And of course, I'm assuming his friend Randy is the one telling the girl Janice that, like, yeah, dude, he's out saving people, so of course he's gonna come back tired. He's not gonna be picking up his messes. He's saving people. Come on. They don't elaborate too much on this, but this is just another thing that just leads me to believe that most of this nightmare crap is just happening in his dreams. But it's a complete setting change, you know, we're in California. This is still a very bizarre story, but I'm jiggy with it. And as they're all having dinner, Peter and his friends, they bring up the fact how they're about to go see this art show, and they invite him along. The entire art show is just randomized spirals. So this is where Peter gets introduced to the actual artist of the art show, and she explains how her inspiration is basically the Fibonacci spiral. And this is where Peter's like, oh crap, I just thought about something. So of course he's stealing her ideas to use in his science experiment. Now, as he's making his way over to the lab to apply these new ideas, he ends up calling his lab partner, and it sounds like she picks up, but it's very incoherent. He tries telling her about the Fibonacci, the idea that he quote unquote came up with, of course, just stole it from the artist. But then you sort of get a sequence where she just screams at him over the phone, and it cuts away to Peter just, you know, jumping through buildings. This part's really cool. I like this double page splash where it's like a Z formation that it's taking you along, where Peter's of course just swinging from the top left corner of the page, and throughout both of the pages he's just getting chased by this helicopter as he's talking on the phone. I thought that was pretty cool. But this is another story aspect that they implement here. Whereas he's talking on the phone, you know, you hear her scream, but then because Peter's getting chased by a LA helicopter, like a police helicopter, it sort of leads you away from that actual phone call. So you sort of just forget about it as you're reading, because, you know, there's just actual events happening where he's just getting chased by these cops and he's getting like hassled by them over the microphone. When Peter notices this like door on top of one of the buildings that has a spiral on it, and he's like, could this be the nightmare poking through? There's only one way to find out. So of course he walks up to the door, turns the handle and walks right through it. And it leads him into this empty field inside of the Rose Bowl Pasadena I'm assuming football stadium from California. I don't freaking know. I've never been there. And then you get these like stadium guards that are just walking around, just making sure that there's no trespassers. When they notice Spider-Man and they tell him to get off the premises, and as he's talking to them, they start to fuse into like a single being, and you get this crazy nightmarish monster where it's just like this. It looks like a kaiju to me, like a Pacific Rim kaiju, and it has like a flashlight with teeth on its head. It's so freaking cool. Like the art is so freaking cool. The writing in this comic is freaking cool. This is definitely one of my more favorite comics of modern times. This is great. But anyways, this is also where you get Spider-Man. He transitions from just having regular white eyes to having his yellow eyes that he would get inside of his nightmare sequences. As crazy as it is, I know this is part of the storytelling aspect, so probably. I don't know. I'm putting this book up to very high standards because I just enjoy it. So hopefully it doesn't let down, in the upcoming issues. But this is definitely a good one. I like the attention to detail that they put in this one. And then, of course, he's in this dream sequence, and he makes his way back to the lab that he's working in with his partner. He storms in, and then he brings up in his thought bubble that this isn't what he was expecting, right? The lab partner's already there. She thought about something that she could implement for the experiment, and luckily Peter arrives. She asks him how, she tells him like she wasn't expecting Peter to be showing off, and he tells her about the phone call. He's like, yeah dude, I wasn't planning on coming in until I gave you that one phone call. And she's like, oh, phone call? Oh, I didn't receive it. I must have missed it. Whatever. And then they continue talking with the experiment, right? It's just a little hint in the story as to what could possibly be going on here. So they both come to the conclusion. They both have this, the same exact idea, right, for the experiment that Peter, quote unquote, came up with himself at the art museum or the art show, whatever. So they implement the Fibonacci nonsense into this, sound water experiment to, oh yeah, they're doing the experiment for some like dead cells or whatever. Let's just say they're doing an experiment. That part doesn't particularly matter, but I appreciate the fact that they try to explain what the experiment is for. They didn't do that for the Amazing Spider-Man. Well, they kind of did that. They're talking about them using some sort of jet engine or whatever, but anyways, I just like the attention to detail. That's really nice. It adds to the story, of course. Doesn't make me come up with it myself. I don't know, maybe I'm being hypocritical over the Amazing Spider-Man comic. But anyways, they implement the Fibonacci spiral into the experiment, and then they begin. And you get these like crazy water effects where it's just the water, rising from the pool that it's in. And it starts getting more and more chaotic, only to reveal that they just summoned a supernatural demon bear and it just lunged out and attacks them. And that's basically where that story ends. It's a huge cliffhanger. Now, this is also something that sort of leads you to believe that this experiment might be tied behind him and his nightmares. Also, the bear that he fights trying to save those Gen Zers on his way home. There's just so much to actually think about with this issue. And I'm legit interested in whatever next issues come out with this specific comic run. But yeah, this is definitely a very interesting take on the Amazing Spider-Man. Typically, you get the Amazing, you get the Spectacular, did I say Amazing already? Yeah, I did. You get Superior Spider-Man, and then now we're getting the Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Like I said, I came into this story thinking this was just gonna be him finally breaking bad and just going off, probably crossing the line that he never morally crossed. He never went out of his way to just completely off a villain, just to rid him of that hassle, That's sort of what I thought we were going into. Maybe we still will. Who knows? Maybe on the last final issue, he finally loses it and it just offs a guy who's jaywalking. I don't know. But, very interesting concept. I like everything about it. Like I said, just overall, very good issue. It's one of the ones that I would actually highly recommend if you're just a Spider-Man fan. It has a lot of, new things, like I said. If this is your first comic as a new reader going into it, you're not gonna know what's happening. But if you, of course, have indulged yourself in just a ton of Spider-Man lore, maybe you can make it work. You, of course, aren't gonna know who Randy is or Janice. They're more modern characters, I want to say. I think they're the characters from The Amazing Spider-Man, like Randy, his neighbor from that building. Who knows? This could also just be a completely different universe Spider-Man. There's just a lot of things in the air, but it does it in a way where it still hooks you and the story is still great, you know, which you hardly ever get that in modern day comics. Sometimes the story is just a story. Sometimes it's actually pretty good and keeps you just over analyzing the comic itself, like what it's trying to say, what it's trying to mean, what the writer's trying to do. A lot of them don't put that much effort into it, and I just really like this one like shit. But anyways, if you really enjoyed me talking about this week's comic issue and you want to hear me talk about more nerdy stuff, then make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.